Tuesday night, the Israeli government approved a hostage for terrorist swap, including a 4-day ceasefire. We're going to talk about it and what it means and what Israel has to do now in order not to lose the war. Coming up on In Focus. Well, it's easy to understand why the hostage deal would be tantalizing for Israel to take. Hamas on October 7th seized 239 Israelis. We now know that maybe 235 of them are alive or considered alive. And we have among them many, many children, 40 children. We have women. We have young men. We have old men. We just learned that one of the elderly hostages that's been held by Islamic Jihad, who was filmed in a hostage video just last week, that she's dead. So we have Yehudit Katsir, I think is her name, and from Nir Oz. So we want them home. We want these hostages home, particularly, the thing that kills us the most are the small children that they have and the mothers who they're holding, which is absolutely wretched. So it's obvious why we want them home. We want all of them home. And on the other hand, weighing against this is that we understand from the Gilad Shalit deal and from every prisoner swap that we've had really today, it's November 22nd. It's the 38th anniversary of the Ahmed Jibril prisoner swap, where we let out what later became the heads of Hamas and Fatah in a prisoner swap, also I think of 500 or 600 for 5 Israeli soldiers who were being held for years in Syria. So we did that swap, and we've never, ever had anything but a massive death toll as a result of these swaps. And we know that we're going to pay a price. And as I wrote in 2011, when I wrote against the prisoners, the terrorists for hostage swap with Gilad Shalit, I said, we know Gilad Shalit's name, the only thing, and we know that many, many Israelis will die because of this deal. The only thing is that the poor victims who are going to be murdered because of this deal, we don't know their names yet. If we knew their names ahead of time, then we wouldn't make this deal. But Hamas benefits from the fact that we don't know. And now we're going to be doing the same thing for the hostages that are being held in Gaza. And we know that untold numbers of Israelis are going to get killed because we're making this deal. We just don't know their names. And so that's a problem. On a tactical level, this deal, which involves the cessation of hostilities for at least 4 days, once it goes into effect, enables Hamas to resupply, again, under the header of humanitarian aid, all of which is going to go to Hamas. Hamas is not going to have mobility because they're not going to have to worry about being hit, so they can use ambulances, they can use the fuel trucks, they can use whatever they want to cart around their fighters, their commanders, perhaps smuggle them across the border into Egypt, since due to American pressure in particular, Israel has still to take over the international border with Egypt in the southern Gaza Strip. We were just beginning our operations when this thing happened. So they're going to be able to resupply, move around their fighters, regroup, reorganize their forces, and of course refuel so that they'll be able to continue their missile war against Israel and continue their regular war against Israel on the ground. It places all of our soldiers in Gaza in imminent risk. I had Chemi Golden, Hadar Golden's older brother, on the show a couple of weeks ago. Hadar Golden was killed, and his body was snatched at the beginning of this humanitarian ceasefire during Operation Protective Edge in 2014. And there's now lots and lots of soldiers on the ground in Gaza. And one of the worst aspects of the deal is that Hamas demanded and received a pause in overflights by Israeli drones for 6 hours a day, every day. Gee, what do they want an end of surveillance to do? Gee, can't imagine. So we're told by the IDF, it's all fine, we got it covered, we don't need the drones in order to conduct surveillance. Well, I hope you're telling the truth, but you said the same thing about the security fence being able to defend all of the communities in southern Israel, which is why, we had guards asleep in their beds being murdered on the morning of October 7th, but they promised us they got it covered. I don't believe them, and I think that would be irresponsible for anybody to believe them at this point. But, we're leaving all of our soldiers in Gaza, and we're leaving them all at risk. It increases massively the prospect of massively increased international pressure on Israel not to end the ceasefire, because one of the beautiful things that Hamas was able to achieve here from their perspective is that they control the release of our hostages. So right now, it's a deal that we let 150 terrorists out of jail in order to get 50 women and children out. And by the way, they're holding 40 children. They're talking about releasing 30 because they say that they don't know where the other 10 are. They're going to look for them. Do you understand how crazy this is? They don't know where our children are. That's just completely and fundamentally untrue, right? But we're negotiating this deal with Nazis. So what do we expect? Anyway, so we did this, but it can be extended. It can be extended for an additional 5 days because they may give us up to 100 hostages. Now, what are the members of the government going to do who can't look the families of the hostages in the eye and they buckled under pressure to have this deal? What are they going to do with the families of the hostages that remain in Gaza? And they're holding out the prospect of releasing their children, their sons, their mothers, their fathers. Who's going to stand up to that pressure? So they even got approval ahead of time for a 10-day ceasefire in the government decision, so that we don't really know that this is only going to be for 4 days. It may be for 10. And if it's for 10, why not for 10 months? Because the international pressure that Israel is already experiencing, the Jordanian regime, which is, burning Israeli flags and calling for war with Israel and all the rest of it, and Queen Rania, said that nothing ever happened on October 7th and, nobody ever conducted any, massacre. So they're already saying that they want to make this ceasefire permanent. So there's going to be more of that because you're also going to get all of these television crews. You're going to have thousands of reporters from all over the world wanting to come in and cover, with great pathos, all the suffering of the poor Gazans because Israel's blown up a bunch of buildings in northern Gaza in order to try to defeat this Nazi ISIS force that controls Gaza and just massacred 1,200 Israelis and is holding 235 Israelis alive, we think, in Gaza. Right? But no, we're not allowed to punish them, right? Even though the civilians of Gaza totally support them and are completely mobilized on behalf of Hamas, they're not allowed to suffer any damage. And all of these international film crews from the BBC and Al Jazeera and ABC, NBC, CBS, and, everybody, Australian broadcasting, and who knows where, they're all going to be coming in and saying that Israelis are Nazis because look what we did, it's worse than Dresden, which, by the way, was bombed by the Allies in World War II. But, be that as it may, they're all going to come in and say how terrible we are. And then the pressure is going to build for the ceasefire to continue on forever, indefinitely. And who's going to stand up to them? Obviously, it lets Hamas map out all of the locations of our soldiers. And again, this guarantees that more Israelis are going to be taken hostage, right? And more Israelis are going to be killed. So this is a great thing that we've done. But again, why did we do it? We did it because the media wanted it, because Israel's media is brain dead. And just as they did with Gilad Shalit during his years of captivity at the hands of Hamas from 2006 until 2011, they've made this the story. I spoke about this at some length in my conversation with Professor Israel-Hamas that's going up on JNS parallel to this, so you should check that out. But I mean, the thing is that, we're in a war, we're in a total war against this jihadist society that just showed us that they're serious when they talk about annihilating all of the Jews, right? We're in this war with them. And rather than contend with that fact, our media, because they just can't deal with big issues, they can only deal with little issues, so they made the entire story about the hostages, right? We're not able to countenance what the implications of a Palestinian society, of living with this Palestinian society in our midst that is organized as the results of the Birzeit University survey that I discussed earlier this week showed. You have 75% of Palestinians who support the annihilation of Israel, that support the slaughter of October 7th, that support Hamas. So 3/4 of the Palestinians support this. This is what they want. This is who they are. This is how they define themselves as a society. This is the big issue. How do we defeat this force? How do we deal with this on a military level? How do we deal with this on a diplomatic level? How do we deal with this on any level? That's the main story. But the media can't handle that story because it's too big, and plus they don't really know what to do because they want Israel to cough up land to the Palestinians. That's been their overriding narrative for 50 years in our media here. So instead, they change the subject. They divert our attention from the main issue, which is that, and they turn it all to the hostages, and which would be fine if they also didn't see this as an internal political issue, that it's up to us to free them. They're not being held by Benjamin Netanyahu and his government. They're being held by Israel's mortal foes, the Palestinians. But no, the pressure is placed on the government, not on the UN, not even on the International Red Cross, which has completely failed in its functioning because it didn't ever really put any pressure whatsoever on the Palestinians, on the Palestinian Red Crescent, which is a member of the International Red Cross. They didn't put any pressure on them to allow Red Cross officials to visit the hostages, none. So we've gotten no sign of life except for the hostage videos, and we already know that one of the hostages in the videos, actually 2 of them, are dead. But, we didn't get any support from these people. And instead of putting the pressure on them, because they're the ones who get hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars every year from nations of the world to do their job, they won't do their job. They're not trying to visit the Jewish hostages in Gaza. So instead, they put all the pressure on the government. The government has to give in to all of Hamas's demands. Let everybody out of our jails in order to get 240 hostages back, without thinking for a second that all of this happened because of the Shalit deal, because we let out, among the 1,028 terrorists in our prisons that were let out then, we let out Yahya Sinwar, the architect of October 7th, who's still commanding Hamas's operation in Gaza. We haven't caught him yet. He's still alive. He was actually negotiating with us this hostage swap, which is completely insane. So this is what happened. So first of all, it was domestic pressure, but it was also pressure from our best friend, U.S. President Joe Biden. I think it was Sky News had this report today praising Joe Biden to high heaven, that this is his great accomplishment. He was the one who brought this about. This is his pledge. He came here. He met with all the hostages' families, or many of them. He pledged to get them out, and here he delivered. How did he deliver? He delivered on the backs of Israel. That's what he did. He didn't put pressure on Qatar. And as Yigal Carmon from Memory, and people like Richard Goldberg and the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and others, and myself, have argued, look, you could have had a deal for 240 hostages, President Biden, if you had actually pressured the source of the problem, which is Qatar, Hamas's state sponsor, them and Iran, of course. And if the U.S. had simply suggested that it may move its airbase out of Qatar and move it, say, to a country that opposes terrorism like the UAE, you would have gotten 240 hostages released the next day without question. Without question, the amount of leverage that the United States holds over the Emirate of Qatar is enormous. Rather than using any of it, the United States accepted the legitimacy of Qatar, Hamas's sponsor, state sponsor, where all the Hamas leaders are living in the lap of luxury in Doha. The United States accepted Qatar as this legitimate, awesome, moderate force and put all the pressure on Israel to bow to the demands of Qatar, Hamas, for the release of terrorists. And by the way, where are these terrorists being released to? Wherever they want. So, for instance, in one case, this Palestinian terrorist from Jerusalem, a female, she tried to murder her Jewish neighbor in Jerusalem in front of this woman's children. She stabbed her in front of her children. And the woman, thank God, survived, and the children did, but they're all still in psychological care after what they went through, the trauma that they went through. And this woman, not only is she about to be released, this terrorist, she's about to be released back to their neighborhood. So this woman who tried to kill these children's mother is going to be running into them at the corner grocery store next week. All right? These are the people. This isn't an innocent civilian for an innocent civilian. These are innocent children and their mothers in exchange for terrorists. And the terrorists aren't being sent to Gaza, which is where they belong, if they belong anywhere, inside, west of the Jordan River. They're being sent back to the same villages and neighborhoods where they were living before they were arrested. That's what we're getting, okay? Just to be clear. So the question is there any way to make lemonade out of these lemons that we're sucking right now? And, for my friend and colleague and frequent visitor on this show, guest on my show, David Wormser, he put out a number of suggestions, and I just want to go through them because I think they're very sensible, and I'll add a few of my own. First of all, we have to understand that from an Israeli perspective, what we're looking at is we are being raped by Hamas as we speak, just as happened in the kibbutzim outside of Gaza on October 7th. And they're holding a gun to the heads of our children in front of us. I mean, that's basically what it is. So it's like, okay, let's get the children out of harm's way and then come back with a sawed-off shotgun and blow their brains out. I mean, that's what the government is promising to do, and that's important. That's great. So you're saying we're going to get the kids out, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to annihilate these people. Okay, I hope that happens. I'm very worried that we're not going to be able to. But I would tell you what will increase our chances of being able to do this, okay? A bunch of different things. So first of all, Turkey, one of the ways that they're going to try to prolong this ceasefire and demonize Israel is just as they did with the Mavi Marma. I don't know if you remember, their terrorist ship that was outfitted by a Turkish affiliate of Al-Qaeda in 2010. Right, the Mavi Marmara, they were coming the 8th flotilla to Gaza. This was after Israel had instated had placed a maritime not barricade. What's the word? The blockade of the Gaza coast, because it's run by a terrorist organization. Under international law, you have to blockade the coast of any territory that's controlled by terrorists, and Israel blockaded the Gaza coast. And so the Turks decided that they were going to try to run the blockade, and they sent in, it's actually a flotilla, and the main ship was called the Mavi Marmara. And naval commandos who were trying to keep this nonviolent, so they were armed with paint guns, because we had this brilliant defense minister at the time named Ehud Barak who thought that it was all a game. So they armed our naval commandos with paint guns, and they boarded the Mavi Marmara, and they were attacked with crowbars and hand grenades and guns and knives by these human rights activists who were on the deck of the ship. And they fought, and they were trying to throw them overboard, and many of them were critically injured before they were able to pull out their guns and start shooting and kill these people. And it was this big international thing. And President Obama, because he's such a good friend of Israel, made Benjamin Netanyahu actually apologize to Recep Erdogan, the Turkish president who ordered this Al-Qaeda group to raid our blockade and pay restitution to the victims, these terrorists. Anyway, so Turkey thinks it's a great idea to just do this again. And what Israel has to do is just say, anybody who comes into the blockaded area of our territorial waters, we're going to shoot at you. And tell the Americans and the Europeans, you better watch out. Turkey's in NATO, we're going to shoot at a NATO ship. Okay? That's what we're going to do. You want to stop us? Stop Turkey. And then if they don't stop and if they don't relent, we have to shoot at them. This actually has to be a threat that we carry out. And let's call Erdogan the big bully man. Let's call his bluff on this, because we can't allow this to go forward. He's one of these actors who's like trying to exploit a bad situation for his own gain, because he's just that way, and he's also a jihadist, and he hates us. But there's more. We have another front in this war. We have a couple more fronts, and we should be dealing with all of them. With Hezbollah, I saw this morning a report that Hezbollah claims that the ceasefire also applies to Lebanon. Well, no. I mean, the government never told us anything like that. We haven't signed on to that. No. Hezbollah is an existential threat to Israel. I talked about this in a column that I wrote last week. You can look it up on JNS. And, they have 150,000 rockets and missiles and mortars aimed at us. They're shooting at us. They're escalating their missile attack, their anti-tank missile attacks on Israeli military bases, soldiers, etc., and their drone attacks inside of Israel. We escalated a bit. On Tuesday, we killed a senior Hamas commander in southern Lebanon. Good work. We should go after strategic targets in Lebanon to attack Hezbollah and undermine or at least degrade their capacity to harm us. We should take advantage of this ceasefire, such as it is with Hamas, to go after Hezbollah in the north. That's one thing. Another thing we should do, we're being attacked by the Yemenites. They're only 2,000 kilometers away from us, but they have all of these beautiful cruise missiles that they got from the Iranians that they're shooting at a lot, right? Why should they be allowed to just do that? We should attack their ports. Let's attack their ports. Let's blow them up. We have 2 Iranian warships that are attacking and threatening international shipping in the Red Sea. Why are they still around? They should be blown up. And we can talk about Iran as well. Right? Iran is directing this whole thing from Tehran. Let's go after them. This is a target-rich environment. This is an Iranian and Qatari-led war against Israel, and they should not be immune from Israeli action because they are using Hamas as a proxy to weaken us, while Iran just shot off this week what they call a Fatah-2 hypersonic missile. They had a missile test of their hypersonic missile. By the way, this is just proof that U.S. deterrence ain't what it used to be, right? Because the Americans sent 2 naval carrier groups to the Eastern Mediterranean and the Persian Gulf, and Iran is so deterred by them that they just tested another hypersonic missile, right? And they're running this whole war. And Hezbollah is escalating its attacks against northern Israel. Well, Iran has to pay a price. Well, they think that they can get away with this. They can order the massacre of over 1,000 Israeli civilians in a single day, taking of hostages, and not pay a price for it? Well, if we're not attacking Hamas, let's attack Iran's leadership. Let's go after some of their installations. Let's go after the nuclear installations. The International Atomic Energy Agency just released a report last week that said that Iran has massively increased its enriched uranium stockpile at 60%, which is just a stone's throw from weapons grade, that they're capable now of building 3 nuclear weapons, basically at will. So why is nobody taking care of this? If we're in a ceasefire with Gaza, let's take care of that. Like I said, there's a lot of opportunities here, and all that they amount to are, obviously, they have intrinsic value to go after them, but they're also important for going back to the main effort of Gaza. Because it's not a joke that we actually have to defeat Hamas. It's true, we do. We saw what they want. They showed us what they wanted. It involved putting babies into ovens and burning them alive, right? That's who these people are. And by the way, they just released a new film. I saw it. I don't know why I watched it, but I saw it, of their atrocities from October 7th. They're proud of this. They're not hiding it. This is who they are. And again, the Birzeit University poll, 75% of the Palestinians think this is a fantastic thing. And I think the most amazing thing is that 11% can't make up their minds if they think it's a good idea or a bad idea. They're on the fence, baking babies, raping women, good, bad, don't know. But why, by the way, why is it that the Yemenites are attacking us? Well, yeah, they're jihadists and, they're all on drugs or whatever, but that's not really why. And they can, because the Iranians have outfitted them with all of these cruise missiles. Those are all true. There's another reason. It's because Iran ordered them to do so. Right? We have to keep our eye on the ball. It's true we have to annihilate Hamas. There's absolutely no way that this organization can be allowed to exist in any form. And I would argue that, increasingly, I'm coming more and more to the conclusion that we have to encourage the people of Gaza to leave, all right? And we have to open up the border with Egypt so that they can go, all right? Just go. Leave. Because I don't know how we coexist with people who support what happened on October 7th. I just don't see it. I can't understand how anybody in their right minds think that that's possible. But be that as it may, we'll leave that for another time. If we agree to a deal that is a disaster for Israel, and if we want to win this war, we have to show that we're not done prosecuting it and that we understand that this isn't just about Hamas. It's about the whole Iranian complex of proxy forces and the Iranian regime, which all of them are actually attacking us in order to protect. And we have to use this time, both on the ground in Gaza, to do whatever it is that we can do, get back our babies, take their gun away from the heads of our babies that they're holding in Gaza. And we have to go to the source of a lot of this, to Yemen, to Lebanon, to Iran. And by the way, Turkey, don't get involved, okay? We're not playing around. These are the things that Israel has to do. And if we don't use this time wisely, and if we don't recognize that this is a time to make clear to everybody in the region that we mean business, then the way that people are going to be looking at us and perceiving us following this deal is as weak, that we're weak, that we buckled, that we gave in, that we're going to enable Hamas to survive. And that's going to whet their opportunity, that's going to whet their appetite to pressure us to do more and more and more to help Hamas survive. Because they support Hamas. They don't support Israel. We have to make it clear that they have to support Israel because we're the ones that are going to survive this, not Hamas. And the only way that we can do that is by acting with strength, not projecting it, not screaming about it, but actually doing. Because screaming, all of that, we lost the right to rush around talking about what we're going to do to somebody on October 7th. Now we have to show that we're doing it. We've been doing it well in Gaza, but for this deal, we've stopped all of our momentum. So if we want to go back to Gaza and finish the job, and if we really want to enable all of the people in northern Israel who had to evacuate their homes because of Hezbollah to come back, then we have to take care of Lebanon. We are serious. This isn't a war of choice. The Palestinians showed on October 7th that they are in a total war against Israel. This is a war for our annihilation. And we have to show them that we get it. It's not just the Palestinians, it's the whole Iranian complex, and we're going to take it to all of them. Anyway, those are my thoughts for today's In Focus. That's what I think about this hostage deal. And I'll talk to you again next week. Take care.